Welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm Justine Reichman, and today with me is Sandra Velasquez. Hi, Sandra. How are
Hey,
you?
Justine, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you having a little faith in this new podcast that I'm launching here. So super excited.
Awesome. Me too.
So for some of our listeners, you're new to them. For some of our members, people know you already because you do a lot of lunch and learns. But if maybe you could just share a little bit about your story and how you got into it. I know it's super interesting from music to food, and I can't wait to find out a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I currently work in sales and distribution. I live in New York City. So I'm the New York area sales manager for Van Leeuwen ice cream. So I manage the grocery side of the business. And then I also have another client called HiBAR, which is a zero waste hair care line out of Minneapolis, which is super beautiful and cool. And so that's what I do now for a living. But I've been doing that for maybe, I don't know, I've been in sales and distribution for about 6 years or 5 years. But really, I've been a musician my entire life. So that is what I've been doing since I was a child. And, I have a degree in music, actually. The transition wasn't really conscious or planned. I think like most people who kind of fell into the grocery space, unless you kind of grew up in it, like with your family or something, I find a lot of people fell into this space. And so for me, it was just an opportunity that came my way to help launch a health drink company. And I took the opportunity, and that's where I really cut my teeth and like learned everything about the industry. And so now I've been able to, take all that knowledge and teach it to new brands that are entering into the space so that they really have like a fighting chance. So they understand like how the industry really works.
And it's a challenging industry in so many ways.
Very competitive. Yeah. I mean, every category is saturated, but some more than others for sure.
Yeah. So can you just go back a little bit and tell me a little bit about the music that you did? I'm super interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really talk about my music stuff to my students because, it's not why they come to me. Right. But when I moved to New York in 1999 to pursue my music career. That's why I moved here from California, which is where I'm from. And this is where I founded my first band, Pistolera, it was an all-female band. I sing in Spanish. I'm the band leader. I'm the songwriter. I'm the guitarist, and had a lot of great opportunities, performing at Central Park, Brooklyn, Celebrate Brooklyn, Town Hall. We went to Europe a couple times, opened for Los Lobos. Lots of great opportunities. And again, it was because what we were doing was super niche, which is, I think, what I try to teach, the students in my class now who are in grocery. Like, you need to know like who your audience is and who you are making this thing for. And so mine was super niche. I mean, I only sing in Spanish, right? And I play like Latin, my own blend of like Latin music of different styles. And the lyrics are pretty like political. So it was like very, very niche.
Send me a track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'd love to hear that, and I'd like to include it in our intro and outro.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, had some great opportunity, had some good like music placements. Like you can hear my music in Breaking Bad and Sons of Anarchy, National Geographic, Travel Channel. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. And did that for many years. And then when I had my daughter, I decided to make a kids version. So I made a bilingual kids version. I had to give it a different name. Because Pistolera, for those of you that speak Spanish, know that means female gunslinger. So that's definitely not an appropriate kids band name. So I started a new version, same band members, like same everything, just different name, different songs, called Luna Luna. And that also became really successful because, again, like talking about being really niche, there's always kids in the world. There's always parents that need to do things with their kids. Like they need to take them to do stuff. And so, we performed also great opportunities like LA Times Books Festival. We played in Washington. We, played big festival stages. There's always like a family stage usually at a festival. So also great opportunities there, and some licensing with Scholastic to really like help educate like, younger school children who are learning both English and Spanish. So
it's a great way to learn the language, right?
Yeah, so it became an educational tool. So that was kind of my intention. And so that's cool that really manifested. So that's what I've been doing pretty much my entire adult life. And then I also just happen to work in grocery.
it just happened to be. Was there any connection from food to grocery?
I mean,
Particular?
I can't say that there's a connection for me in terms of like how I brought my knowledge from being a band leader into the grocery space. That is a very, very strong connection, but there was no correlation between my decision, you know, from being a musician to now entering into the grocery space. It's just that the reason I became good at sales is because I was a band leader and I was booking my own tours and I was doing all the logistics, you know, because when you're a band leader, it's 80% logistics, 20% art, you know, and just like when you run a food business, you don't just get to like bake bread all the time, right? Like you have to do all the logistics and all of the paperwork and the math and, you know, all of that stuff that is, you know, unglamorous. So for me, I just took that knowledge of, you know, how I learned to communicate to people and how I learned, you know, to understand, like really understand like your niche and really communicate your value to the person on the receiving end, which is ultimately what sales is. Like sales is just learning how to communicate and tell, you know, understand what people need and providing that solution to them. That's really it in a nutshell, honestly.
And building relationships, right?
100%.
All about relationships and fostering those relationships, which is a full-time job. Just
100%.
doing that.
Yes, absolutely. Like all business is relationships at the end of the day. It's people helping people, and learning how to talk to people is a real life skill, you know?
Definitely. I know that, I don't know about you, but it's been challenging or changing, I should say, with COVID, because we're used to seeing each other face to face and establishing that rapport. And now we take it to the computer and we're writing emails. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm always just very efficient. I'm like, okay, what time? And I forget to establish that relationship. I have to go back. I mindfully go, I reread this. I'm like, okay, hey, Sandra, how are you?
Yeah.
How are things going?
Yeah.
That was Labor Day, whatever it is, because sometimes that gets lost.
It does. It's true.
And there's real art to it. And I think that it's communication, building relationships, sales has pivoted or changed a little bit. And we've had to figure out those new ways to establish those relationships. Are you experiencing that too, or is it just me?
No, you're 100% correct. And I think that, and I use this example like with my students in my class, like we all know how to write a letter, like a hard copy letter. Like, you know how to write the envelope, like first name, address, city, state, zip code, you know, to put that in the center, and you know, to put like your return address at the top. Like we were trained on how to do that, but no one ever really taught people how to write emails.
True.
And so they're all over the place. And so one of the things I teach people is, and I show them like how I write emails, and they are very efficient, but it's combined with like humanity. And it's
a lost art. People
yes.
forgot.
So it's like efficiency plus also like empathy. So like, yes, hi Justine, how are you? Right? Like, how is San Francisco? I hear the fires are really bad. And then we can talk about, is 2 p.m. good for you? Right?
Exactly.
But you need to connect with people like digitally, and you know, it doesn't mean that it's long-winded. It's just that, you know, those little things, those details really come through, you know, those
would agree.
Pieces of humanity.
I was actually having a conversation with my father, and he just writes down what he's thinking. And I'm like, I need some more context here. It's like, and he's not the first person, so it's not meant to point him out to say that but people just come out of nowhere, or they'll just respond. And I think we got to take a step back sometimes. And so, you know, in sales, I'm sure you have to do this all the time. It comes out of left field, or how are we connecting the dots and making those and establishing those relationships and continuing them during these times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been selling all through COVID, so my job never stopped, because grocery, as you know, as we know, was like the only place we were allowed to go was the grocery store during COVID. Everyone was, you know, growing grocery shopping like it was going out of style. So
like they thought it was Bloomingdale's.
Yeah, exactly. It was like Black Friday every day. And so I've been working the whole time. And I mean, I'm grateful that I work in an industry that had work, you know, during COVID, because all of my musician friends, basically their careers ended overnight, right? Like anyone that had a tour booked was canceled. Anyone that had anything that had to, you know, music is something that you do with people in the same room. And
There's
that's
been a
really
lot of online happy hours, and we did them even, where we brought people in from Brooklyn doing it on their stoop, and you know, and we tried to say, hey, donate to them. They're providing a service, but it was really challenging. So
Really, really challenging. I can't, even as like as a music lover, like as a, you know, as like a person in the audience, I have a hard time engaging with a concert that's happening online. You know, it's
yeah,
really
it's
challenging.
not the same. It's
It's
not.
not the same. Yeah.
So I'd love to just go back for a second. And I know that, you know, you were a musician first and then you decided to go into grocery. Was there something that happened that was pivotal, or there was a moment that just inspired this change?
I just, an opportunity came my way. So I was, you know, I had always been a musician, and I always had like a really safe day job, like an easy, safe day job. So I worked in higher administration. I worked at Columbia University, and that was, you know, I worked there for 15 years because I had summers off. So it was great as a musician. I could go on tour in the summer. I had spring break, I had Christmas break, you know, and I had health insurance, right? So I had these perks that were, you know, really helpful to my lifestyle as a musician, as a working artist. And then, you know, but I didn't really foresee like what else I could do that would give me that kind of freedom as an artist. And so this opportunity came my way where an acquaintance said that her family was starting a health beverage, and they could see that I was really good at logistics and, you know, et cetera. And so they asked me to help. And so I was just like, well, this is just totally random, but this sounds like a great like opportunity to kind of get out of this like office job that I'm in. So I took the opportunity, and it was super challenging, really hard, you know, learning grocery, learning everything from like formulation to like packaging to, you know, actually selling into stores and how to work with distributors. There's a lot to learn, you know, when you don't know anything, which we didn't. So that's really where I learned everything. So it was really just a chance opportunity that for whatever reason, I thought was a good idea.
Well, how many years later is it? Was it a good idea? What do you think?
Yes, it was definitely a good idea, because as hard as it was, I learned everything through that, you know, through having to like, from like zero to, you know, to being like national, like we learned everything from scratch. And so I had to, you know, when you're a startup, you know, like everyone in your community, like they're doing everything themselves, you know what I mean? They're bootstrapped, you know, brands, and they're wearing 7 hats. And that was totally me. You know, I was in charge of production. I was in charge of sourcing. I was in charge of sales. I was in charge of, you know, mopping the floor. And so, you know, I feel like it's just great training for life, because when you really learn how to like learn new skills and learn how to, you know, communicate, and just everything that I learned from grocery, I feel like can be applied to the rest of life, honestly.
So can I go back to something you were talking about when you were looking at this new opportunity? And you mentioned working at Columbia, and the fact that it allowed you to continue to do your music and equally have the freedom and the flexibility to do that.
Yeah.
So you're working there, you got your bills covered, you got your insurance covered, and then as a bonus, you got your ability to continue your music. So it sounds like work-life balance was really important to you.
Yeah, it is. I wouldn't call it a balance. I would just call it, it's really important. I feel like, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, it's really, or when you're an artist, working artist, it's really hard to have like a balance. I think that it's about understanding what's important to you, right? So it's important to me, and making sure that those things, you know, happen, right? So it's important to me to be a working artist. And it's also important to me to have my rent paid. And so like whatever I have to do to make those things happen, you know, but there is a sacrifice, like, you know, even as a working artist, you know, people would have parties, or there would be events, and I'd be like, sorry, I'm out of town, I'm on tour, or I'm recording a record. Like, I was always like recording a record, right? So, and when you're an entrepreneur, like, if, you know, you have a food brand, you also make that sacrifice. Like if you run a restaurant, you don't get to also hang out and go to barbecues. Like you're running a restaurant, you know what I mean?
True.
So but it's about like what's important to you, you know?
The passion.
Yeah.
So that's more it is. It's less about the work-life balance and more about integrating your passion for purpose into what you're doing.
Yes.
So doing the job at Columbia facilitated you following your passion to be able to continue to do music.
That's right. That's right.
And integrate that into your life.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a really important point, because so often, you know, I like to talk about, you know, purpose and passion, and how I've completely followed that. I love to connect people, and I love to fix problems, and I love to, you know, do all those things. And so I channeled that all into NextGenChef.
Yeah.
And but that gets me up in the morning, and that's my purpose-built business.
Yes.
So I think, you know, this is interesting. So you worked at Columbia to facilitate this, and then you're now doing distribution and marketing and helping all these brands get into the groceries. Would you say that that's a new passion, or would you say it's still the day job now, facilitating your passion?
No, I'm definitely less of a musician now. I've been a musician my entire life, right? So that's like a long
You're
time.
always going to be a musician.
Yeah, exactly.
You are
Like
going
my
to be a
father,
musician.
yeah, exactly. Like my father is a painter, and he'll go like 6 months without painting a painting, and he's still an artist. You know what I mean? So, I'm definitely, you know, to answer your question, I think that what my passion and my purpose is to really equalize the playing field. Like it really, you know, excites me to empower other people and to like make an impact in that way. And so for many years I did that as a musician, right? Like my lyrics were political. I would talk about the immigrant experience because my family's from Mexico. So there was a lot of that in my music, and it was speaking to a certain audience and making an impact because they felt seen, they felt understood, they felt connected, right? And that's what really motivated me, you know. And now me in the grocery space and teaching my class to my students about how to get into stores, like I feel, you know, the impact that I'm making on them is sharing my experience and my knowledge from already having gone through it and already being, and like currently being in it still, and really empowering them and giving them the tools so that they can go and do it themselves. Because otherwise it takes you like years to learn this information. Like it took me years, right? And I'm trying to save people like 2 years of time. So, you know, really empowering them and leveling the playing field, because most of the brands that I work with, they don't have like a board of directors. They don't have like millions of dollars. They don't have, you know, like everything in place, right? They're literally building the house from the ground up. And so they, you know, there's a lot, they have a lot of questions, right? And so I really like empowering them and making that impact. So that's, I feel like ultimately what my passion, like the thread of passion, right? From being a musician to like now in grocery, which seems totally disconnected, is really like empowering people when it comes down to it.
I love that. I love that. It's a great metaphor. It's a great way to explain it. So I have a question for you. My question is that, you know, you are supporting these individuals with all these access to all these different resources, which is amazing to me, because we equally just launched a roundtable, and I don't know if I told you about that, but if I didn't, I should, and we should include you in it. It's a way to create or provide the resources and expertise at a high level to these food and beverage entrepreneurs building better for you food businesses. So we curate these tables based on people's needs. Okay, we want to get distribution. Okay, we need to build our brand. We need to identify our audience. Whatever it is, we build out these tables. So that's for another day, but it sounds like there could be a way for us to collaborate on that.
Yeah, for sure. I love roundtable discussions. I feel like the more people that are asking questions, the more everybody learns. You know, this is why I don't really do many one-on-ones, because I love when other people ask questions and then, you know, other people get to learn the answers, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that we feed off of each other.
Yeah.
From, you know, founder to founder, mentor to mentor, consultant to consultant, we all have a little bit of a different point of view and expertise to share.
Yeah.
And the minute you say something, it might even trigger something for me that I never considered.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it just goes back to the thing of like, we're all connected and we need each other.
And I think people are finally getting that now. I feel like there's a shift in the paradigm. And unfortunately, I think it has to do with COVID, but you know, if that's what it took to, I don't know if that's what it took, but that might have been one of the reasons behind this.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'd love to hear maybe if you could share a specific story. You don't have to give us a specific person's name or anything, but the impact that they had by going through your program and where they were before, and by going through your program, what they achieved and the success that they had.
Yeah, I mean, it actually is like an ongoing, I have more than one story to share. So it's like it's an ongoing thing where, you know, students will say like, hey, thanks to your class, like, you know, we're now in like all of these retailers. And now they feel confident. Like I really like giving people the confidence, right? Like that's what I kind of pass on to them. Because, you know, again, I have a degree in music. How does that help me work in grocery, you know? And so my point to them is like, if I can do it, so can you, you know? And sales is not something that you go to school for. Like there's no such thing as a degree in being a sales rep or being a broker. Like you learn it by doing, right? Like throw Justine into the pool and she's going to learn how to swim, right? And so I love just like these success stories that I hear kind of just on an ongoing basis of like, hey, we got into like the biggest retailer. I had a student who's in Canada and she got into like the big conventional grocer there with her kombucha.
Nice.
And yeah. And so, you know, I love hearing those success stories because they're able to, they did it themselves, right? Like they didn't go and hire a sales rep. They didn't go and hire a broker. They did it, you know, and that's really what I want to show people how to do is like, you can actually do this. Like, I'd rather you save your money, like save it for your business, for your marketing, whatever, and just go do this work yourself in the beginning because you can. And so that she comes to mind, the kombucha, Parker Review kombucha. And then I have another one who actually took my class. She's actually like a PR consultant. She has a PR firm and she wanted to take the class because she wanted to be able to help her clients. So I also let other people into the class too, not just founders, because the more people that can empower more people, the better, you know? And so she was able to get several of her clients into some great retailers in California as well as a result of learning how the whole system works. So that's always great to hear too.
That's really important, right? It empowers people to be independent and to not rely on others and
yes,
not make it a function of the money.
Yes.
Because we get paralyzed by this so often as founders and startups because we don't have the financial resources necessarily to do what we need to do. So
Right.
being able to have a resource like yourself, to be able to go through a class like that, to be able to empower myself to then go off and do that, puts me on a whole nother level.
100%. Yes. I love that. Yeah. And I'm like, listen, at some point you will have to hire somebody to maybe do this work, but you can train them because you will know what that job is. You know, I don't want anyone to ever be like the old lady whose husband died and they don't know how to write a check because the husband always did that. You know what I mean? That's what I like. I want everyone to know how this works, how you can do it yourself. And then you can always train your own team because you will be like the master.
That's so true. I agree. And I think it's so important because the truth is we're not going to be able to do everything. We're not going to know how to do everything. But as a startup, being scrappy and having access to a resource like yourself and somebody that knows a little bit about supply chain and somebody that knows a little bit about branding, and which is what we're facilitating in these roundtables, which is you know, why we're bringing in experts like you to be able to give them that access in an affordable way. In a way that they're not hiring these consultants for $25,000 to
oh my God.
No,
I don't know any startup that has that kind of money to do that. You know, I mean, that's different. That's like a different level of what a startup is. You know, some people think of a startup as like you start with $3 million. You know?
And well, and who is it? Somebody was saying, "Oh, Facebook is still a startup." I was like, "Really?
No.
Okay. Walk me through that."
Yeah. No, but I love what you're saying, and I think that's great because you know, resources. You know, there's so much to learn when you're starting a food business or, you know, beverage business. And you don't have to be good at everything, you know, like there are some things that you can outsource, right? Like I wouldn't say that you have to be like a good HTML coder and you have to build your own website, right? Because that's something that you do, like gets done once and then it's done. You do need to learn how to like use it.
Squarespace, right? For the dummies
exactly.
like me.
Exactly. Or you do, I love Squarespace. You do need to know like how to update it, right? Which I would recommend you learn how to use it, right? But in terms of like real skills that you need to start a business, the reason that sales, I really want everyone to learn how to do it is because sales is just communication. And if you don't know how to sell your own product, then that's a little scary to me. And I feel like you're always going to then rely on like a professional, quote unquote, to go and do that job for you. And you'll never be able to do it yourself because you never had to.
And I think that also goes back to passion, which is where, you know, where I had started this conversation a little bit ago with you about purpose and passion, because as a founder, they need to have the passion and the drive and the vision.
Yes.
Because if that's not coming out of them at the seams, it's going to be even harder to sell.
Yes.
And how are you going to get other people then to sell it for you? One of the reasons I feel like NextGenChef has had some success is because people see my passion come through. At least that's what I'm told.
Absolutely. No, it's so true. Like emotions are contagious, and it's really, you can't build a team without great leadership, so it has to like begin with like the founder, and that passion, is contagious. And then that's how you attract people to you. Right. Just to say, well, I want to make this product, I'm just going to go outsource everything. Well, then you're going to have this like fragmented team. You'll never have like a real team. And then what happens when people quit? Then you're just going to go and replace them because you never knew how to do that job in the first place, and so on and so forth. So absolutely, you need to have the passion, and like you need to have clarity on like why, like, why did you make this product? Who is it for? What problem does it solve? How does it make their life better? And have clarity on that, because that is what you use to sell. Like, you need to have that clarity.
Exactly. I can't agree more. And I've learned that because I had other companies that I worked for and businesses that I started, and I ran a gaming company for a while, and I could see how this could expand. I could see how it could grow, but you could hear in my voice that I didn't believe I should get that investment, because I was like, yeah, I think this is a good idea. I could see how it could work, but I just, for so many reasons, my values did not align with it. It didn't align with it because I didn't like the idea of creating a platform for people to connect, and they connected and they weren't always nice to each other, or it would be a place to go and hide, but equally be someone else, and it wasn't authentic and genuine, which is the antithesis, I think, of what I'm trying to create. I want to break down barriers, demystify things, so that everybody, regardless of your level, meets you where you are, so you're approachable.
Yes, I think that point that you just made is super important, which is that understanding your own values and finding people, making sure that your values align with the company that you're starting or that you're working for or whatever, is people don't talk about that enough. And there's some great companies out there that I think are doing that really well. Like, one is Olipop. And I just heard on another podcast that they have this really rigorous hiring process, because they want to make sure that like you are aligned with their values and mission, because otherwise, like, if you're just there to get a job, they're not interested. Like, you need to align with their values and mission, because that's the only way you're going to, like, really like help the company grow. So I think that's a really overlooked thing as well. And people ask me like, how do I find a sales rep? How do I find this? And I'm like, well, it's not just about people's resumes, like, you need to, like, it's a character test, right? Like, if your daughter, like, I have a teenage daughter, and if she was like, here's, I have a new boyfriend, I would be like, I need to know, like, what is his character? So it's really a character test, and again, it just goes back to this thing that you said about having, the same values that are aligned.
Yeah, I agree. And as I meet more and more founders, you'll see them be really authentic, and you'll see the difference between the ones that are super passionate and motivated versus the ones that came up with a really smart idea. Not to say it's not, but they're a bit disconnected to it. It's really just to connect the dots because they see the dollar signs at the end, which I'm not trying to negate, but it's a very different sell. It's a very different process, a very different kind of company. And I'm looking to support our purpose-driven food and beverage entrepreneurs.
Of which there are plenty, and there are many of those.
There are plenty, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just, talk to you a little bit about the different kinds of brands you have. I will tell you, during COVID, I've had a little bit of a weakness with the Van Leeuwen ice cream. I think I put on not the freshman 15, but maybe the COVID-19. No, not that much, but okay.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I could eat the what is it? It's the cookie dough with raspberry, or cookie dough with caramel or something, or
it's a strawberry cookie crumble strawberry jam.
That's one. Thank you. Yes, that one.
Yeah.
And then the one with the cookies and cream and caramel or something.
Oh, cookies and cream caramel swirl.
Yeah, there you go. Those are my favorites.
I know, it's so good. It's really a dangerous job, to be honest with you, because I always have like 15 pints of ice cream in my freezer, because when I'm in the field and I see like a damaged pint, I have to like buy it out. You have to, I
can see.
Yeah. Because it won't sell if it's like dented or whatever. So anyways,
I would never buy it if it was dented.
What's that?
I would never buy it if it was dented.
See, so that's why I buy it for you.
Or something. Oh, that's with cans, right?
With cans, yeah, with cans, right.
I'm just kidding. So do you work mostly with, I mean, you have a variety of brands. So, you know, I'm curious with the pivot for so many companies to build healthier products that are either vegan or just less sugar or just more local. How has that experience been for you? And is that a bit of a transition? And do you deal with those companies in a little bit of a different way?
You know, I think, I mean, I work with a lot of like better for you brands, like in my class, like a lot of them like come through that are creating, you know, better versions of like legacy products, like a better, cleaner ramen, right? Like don't eat top ramen because that has, we don't know what. So buy this one instead. It's a cleaner panel. And I actually love those ideas of people that take like legacy products, like cookie dough, ramen, like things that we all grew up eating our entire lives, like Kraft macaroni and cheese, right? And then they make a cleaner, better like version. I feel like there's always opportunity for that. So I love people that do that. But I think it still just comes down to, you know, understanding like who you made this product for. And, you know, Van Leeuwen has like, now we have like 32 flavors. I mean, it's kind of insane.
Robins.
Yeah, exactly. We have like our dairy line, we have
or something.
Yeah, vegan line, and we have, you know, our oat milk line. So there's a lot of flavors to choose from, but, you know, we created those vegan lines because there are people that want ice cream, but they're vegan or they're lactose intolerant or whatever. So you solve a problem like with your product. You still make it taste good, right? Just because it's vegan doesn't mean it can't be creamy and delicious, right?
That Van Leeuwen ice cream is so creamy and soft from the minute you put your spoon in the container.
Yeah. That's why people love it, because it tastes good, you know.
The consistency also that reminds you of ice cream versus some of these other
like gelato or frozen dessert.
It's not creamy like that. That gives me the sensation that I'm eating ice cream and that it's not compromised. I don't have to eat sorbet. I get that same sensation of creamy ice cream.
Yeah.
Reminds me when I was a kid and I'd go to the corner and get an ice cream.
I know. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And then with, you know, HiBAR, it's also, we've seen explosive growth because it's just a one-of-a-kind product. Like there's very few options for like quality shampoo, like in a bar format that also has a conditioner pair. And so it's actually like, for me, I love like representing that brand because I know that when I'm presenting to stores, I know that they don't have anything like it. You know, like with Van Leeuwen, frozen is a very competitive category. There are a lot of ice cream brands, you know, and there are obviously a lot of shampoo brands, right? But there's not a lot of solid shampoo brands that are not bars of soap. And so again, but like understanding like what the unique quality is of your product and being able to present that as the opportunity to the retailer, like this is going to help your category, because right now all you have on the shelf is like this other shampoo bar that is really just a bar of soap if you look at the ingredients. And, you know, most women spend like lots of money on their hair and their hair color. They don't want to rub like a bar of soap on their hair, right? So they're willing to have the plastic, even though they know it's like bad for the environment. It's going to end up in the ocean and it doesn't get recycled and whatever. But, you know, HiBAR is solving a problem. And so I think it just comes down to, again, understanding like what problem your product is solving and for who. You know, and
let me go back to Van Leeuwen for a second, just because you said that the ice cream market, the frozen market, is so competitive.
Super, yeah.
So what would you recommend if you were going to give 2 recommendations to our listeners here that have better for you product that they're solving in the frozen section that is really competitive?
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I would say start local. Like I like to say, go hard in your own backyard. Right,
okay.
which is what Olipop did, right? They went hard in San Francisco first, and get your sales data. So because that's what you use to go sell into other stores. So like I present to stores very often, and I always have a pitch deck, and it's very short. It's not complicated. It's mostly pictures, right? Because people don't like to read long
paragraphs. They don't want to read.
Yeah, people don't read. They like to just see like big images, but every deck has sales data in it. And so even if you are just starting out, you can have one slide that just shows like your sales data. Like here was, in Q1, here it is in Q2, you see how it's like gone up, or maybe you have a competitive chart, you know, where you show like all of your competitors and where you sit. And that also just shows like the retailer, like that you understand, you know, your category, right? Because you're always in competition with people in your category. You're not like HiBAR is not competing with Van Leeuwen, right? And Van Leeuwen is not competing with like cold brew coffee, right? It's always about like you and your category. So understanding, I would say like one tip to anyone out there is really understanding your category as best as possible. And you can do that by going to the store, like hanging out at the store, look what else is on the shelf, what are their price points, ask the people at the store, what is selling, what's not selling, just to understand, you know, the territory, like the landscape. So I think that was more than two things, but
I think that's great, because I think people want something to take away. And with your expertise and the classes that you teach, you give people great insight. So this is just a snippet for them to get to know you a little bit better.
yeah.
Maybe have a couple takeaways for them. So before we wrap up, is there a pandemic recipe or product that you have to go to right now?
Oh my God, yes. So my favorite thing about the pandemic, which I know sounds weird to say, is that it's a little bittersweet, because so here in New York, there was an avocado supplier.
Okay.
Who supplied all of the restaurants in New York with avocados. It was like perfect Mexican Haas avocados, right? So imagine like all of the restaurants who serve like guacamole and et cetera. And because of COVID, all the restaurants shut down, and he was stuck with like this warehouse of like pallets of avocados. So he started doing home delivery. And so you could just text him and order 6 avocados at a time. And so my friends in my neighborhood and I banded together, and we would order like many cases, and then we'd all go to like our friend's house and pick them up from her backyard, you know, with our masks on. It was like the Monday avocado pickup. We'd all go with like our shopping bags. And but the thing is, I'm from California, right? And I grew up eating good avocados, right? And here in New York, just so for those of you that are in California, this might not seem special to you because you're so spoiled with your good Mexican food and tortillas and avocados. But here in New York, we're suffering deeply. We do not have good avocados. They're always hard. They haven't been ripened. You open them up and they're like rotten, or they're stringy, or it's just really a mess. And this has been the first time in like 20 years where I have access to like great avocados, like since I moved to New York. So you can get a subscription. So I have an avocado subscription. He brings it to my house every Saturday. He brings me 8.
Wow. And so if we have any New Yorkers listening to our podcast, how would they sign up for this subscription?
So he's on Instagram. He finally started a website. He's called The Avocado Guy. So like D and then avocado guy, okay. But all one word. Okay. So you can find him on Instagram. You can find him, you know, on his website, which is I think avocadoguy.net. Okay. And you can order a subscription and have it brought to your door. It's the best thing. Awesome. So, you know, my favorite pandemic recipe, of course, has been guacamole, because I'm now able to have like on a regular basis. You know, it's now. I gotta ask,
do you put tomato in your guacamole or no tomato?
I do. I put I put tomato, onion, cilantro, and lemon juice.
So I do all of that except for the tomato.
Because you don't like tomato?
No, it makes it too liquidy. When we lived in Mexico City, we had a woman that worked in our house, and she made the best avocado and the best guacamole. And the reason it was the best to me was it was thick and it was chunky. And it had a lot of lime juice and some salt.
Yes.
And I like the chunky and I like the thick. And when you add the tomato, it makes it a little bit more
watery
and watery. And so I'm just trying to recreate my experience living in Mexico City.
Listen, you do you, Justine, but I totally hear what you're saying, because, you know, what I do with a tomato is I actually take out the center so that what I'm
so you don't have that problem.
Yeah. And I use plum tomatoes, right? So I don't use like beef steak tomatoes that are super watery.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then I also put a dollop of like, you know, like a tomatillo salsa or something to give it a little zing. So that it's a little more special than just, you know, avocado. But this is really like, I feel like I'm living my best life here, you know.
Well, that's awesome. So if anybody wanted to find out about your course, maybe for the listeners here, you could share where they might find out more information about you.
Yeah. So I'm actually in the process of launching my website, the distrotalk.com website, but I'm not sure when this episode will air. So I will just say, you know, people can find me on Instagram at distrotalk. So DISTRO TALK, DistroTalk, and there will be links to my website there and how to reach me and sign up and book a call, read articles, all that fun stuff. And I'm always posting tips of information on my Instagram feed.
And I was going to say, for any listeners that are downloaded the NextGenChef app, you can connect with Sandra there as well.
Yeah.
All of our mentors and members are on the app, and you can text them, email them, and connect one-on-one with them. So in the meantime, while she's waiting to get that website up, we don't want to impede the process. We're here to continue the process. So
yeah.
Sandra, thank you so much for joining me here with Essential Ingredients. Super great to talk to you. And we'll have to bring you back with maybe one of your students so we could learn a little bit about their experience and the impact it's had, and share it with the community so everyone else can get on board and get excited.
Yes, I'd love that. Thank you for having me. It was a great talk.
Thank you.